about the Torah service and also the musical elements of the Torah service. And I think the first thing to establish about the Torah service, when do we do a Torah service? Of course, we do a Torah service on Shabbat. That's probably that's the time the Shabbat has the most aliyot. It's really the central moment of the week that we study most deeply into Torah. But there are other days of the week and occasions that we read Torah, and when you read Torah as part of a service, there is a ceremony that goes with it. Of course, the Torah is so special; it's kept in the Ark, and we decorate the Torah. We have the lifting and the dressing of the Torah, and we apply holiness to the scroll, as well as, and the scroll is handwritten, and there are very detailed prescriptions to what a Torah is. It has to be handwritten. It has to be on a animal parchment, and there are just many details. In the Talmud, it is written. There are so many details about what makes a Torah kosher, and we at the synagogue are blessed to have a few kosher Torahs and beautiful mantles. Oh, yeah, in the picture behind me is our ark. But besides Shabbat, of course, the Torah is read on festivals, the Pesach and Shavuot, and Sukkot, and those are the days that we have the special readings of the Torah that pertain particularly to the holidays. But on Saturday, it's we read the Torah from creation to the death of Moses. That's why Torah is also known as the book of Moses, and that is the words that came from God directly to the quintessential prophet Moses. And so Torah is so central to our faith, and it is said in the Torah, in the Talmud, that 3 days shall not go by without studying Torah. So how do we interpret that? We have Torah readings on Monday morning and on Thursday morning as well. And we keep that tradition in our synagogue. We have Torah readings on Mondays and Thursdays. One custom that we do not keep, but many synagogues do, more orthodox, is that on Saturday, on Shabbat afternoon, mincha, they also will have a short Torah reading. So the Monday, Thursday, and the mincha on Saturday, you read the upcoming Torah service. So immediately on Saturday, after you read the portion of the week, you start to read the next portion. Starting on mincha of Saturday, you start to read in the mincha service. You have 3 aliyot. It's a little shortened. You kind of peek ahead, and you get your mind wrapped around what's coming up, what you study in the coming week. So as far as the ceremony, the ritual of taking the Torah out of the scroll, it is always after Shacharit, or it's during Mincha on Saturday if you do that. But so therefore, on Saturdays, it's in the middle. It's going to be after the Shacharit, the first service, and the Mincha service, which follows the Torah on Saturday, is the additional service that is done. Mincha service is only done on Saturday or on a festival. So after Shacharit, you have the ceremony, the ritual for taking the Torah out of the scroll. And I don't think in the Jewish world, in most of the Jewish world, you really can't talk about the Torah service, the music, the ritual, without talking about Solomon Sulzer. And I'll give you a picture of Solomon Sulzer. Sulzer, let me share the screen here. I'm gonna do this. So you should see a picture of Sulzer there. Do you?
I see it
On the screen. Okay. Well, he was a prolific composer in Vienna. His years were, he was born in 1804, lived to 1890, and the Ein Kamocha that he wrote is still, there is hardly a shul that doesn't sing it pretty much the same way. You know it. Ein Kamocha va'Elohim. We'll get more into that later, but Sulzer, his ideas and musical compositions really have really lasted the test of time. He was the full-time Cantor at the Viennese at a Viennese temple for 45 years, and among other things that you'd recognize based on his writings are the Adon Olam. Whenever I do his Adon Olam, I say we're going to go old school today, and that's Adon Olam Asher Malach, as well as his Eitz Chaim Hi, which is the closing of the service. Eitz Chaim Hi, and even the Ashrei that we know, Ashrei Yoshvei Betecha, would be from Sulzer. But there are many other compositions that go into it. Again, I'm gonna, let's see, share. And we're gonna take a look at the Siddur that we use now. No, that's not the one I want. Sorry about that. This is going to be this. And bear with me, and I'll share this. Share screen. Let's go to this way. Okay. Good. And I'm going to stop it for a second because I think I have to share sound as well. There we go. Okay. And so I think we'll just go through the service with some illustrated music. 168. I've got to go through this, pardon me. I just did another Zoom lecture for YIVO, and the professor who gave the lecture, fell off the Zoom 3 times. So this technology is not perfected yet. There we go. Okay, and I think I can make it a little larger. How's that?
Good. It's all right. I can see
Okay,
it.
good. So here we have our Torah service. And it begins with the statement, none compares to you, Adonai, and none is like your creation. Let me give you a nice version of this. This is with a musical accompaniment, and it is sung by a cantor named Marcus Feldman. And I'll tell you a little bit about him, which I think is interesting. Young guy, named one of the top 5 best new voices in Jewish music by the Forwards. Marcus Feldman is the senior cantor of Sinai Temple. Wow, in Los Angeles. And it's on Wilshire Boulevard. So let's listen and read along at the same time the beginning of the Torah service. Here is Cantor Marcus Feldman. Of course, the organ goes back to Sulzer's time as well.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai. Ein k'ma'asecha. Malechutecha malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch ve'olam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitem. Harachamim heitiv avirtzonecha et Zion timne chomot Yerushalayim timne chomot Yerushalayim ki bechol levad batachnu melech el ram v'nisa Adon olamim. Vayehi b'neso Aharon vayomer Moshe Kulma Adonai veyafutzu oyevecha veyanusu mesanecha mipanecha ki mizion teisei Torah ki mizion teisei Torah udevar Adonai Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Baruch
pretty grand.
That's
Well,
They have a nice choir too.
they do. It's not everybody's cup of tea.
holidays, or is this every Shabbat?
Well, this would be every Shabbat, maybe at Temple Sinai with a choir. That is a tradition that was started with the Reform movement
Yeah.
in the 1800s. The bringing an organ into a synagogue was certainly revolutionary because Orthodox Judaism doesn't really approve of musical instruments in the synagogue as a nod to the destruction of the temple. We know descriptions of the ancient temple in Israel did have instruments, lyres and harps and all sorts of instruments are described, but in Orthodox tradition and before Reform, there only was one kind of Judaism, Orthodox, and so that bringing an organ was revolutionary in so much that it not imitated, but the Reform movement wanted to blend in with society of the nations that they were living in, particularly Germany and Vienna, Austria, and so forth. So instruments came into the synagogue with the Reform movement, as well as other changes. It became more besides faith, it became more philosophical as well. So
He had an
anyway,
organ, Stewart, remember, originally years and years ago.
well, no, I don't remember because
Oh, that was before you came, we got rid of it, right.
It was
But
taken
there was
out.
an organ,
Right.
like 50 years ago when we joined.
Yes, and so conservative, the middle, like we've always been a conservative from the beginning, and it conservative was like in the middle. Some conservative synagogues would never allow musical instruments, and some let the organ in. And the choir. So it became more formalized and more of a processional thing, and that's what you just heard. I have another version of an Ein Kamocha, which I thought was pleasing and quite interesting, but much smaller in scope. And this one is by a cantor in just a second. I just want to make sure while I'm thinking. His name is Hillel Tokazier, who is from Finland. There we go. I didn't remember, but there actually there is a Jewish community in Finland, and he is a third generation of Jewish descent, and he did a very nice Ein Kamocha. So we can look at the same text and listen to a different version of Eitz Chaim, the beginning. I mean, wait a minute. Oh yes, of Ein Kamocha. Much more contemporary.
אין כמוך באלוהים השם ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך לכל דור ודור. עד השם מלך, עד השם
nice melody.
Har melech, Har malach, Har yimloch, o yimloch.
Very nice. It gets away from the big ceremonial aspect of Sulzer, but it's heartfelt, and I kind of like it. I wanted to point out also that the Av Harachaman, which was from the Sulzer, I mix it up when at my service, I do a different Av Harachaman. You may have noticed that the Sulzer from the first version was different than what you'll hear at Har Zion. I do Av Harachamim Metiv Avir Sonecha Et Zion. That's a version that I learned at Anshe Emet when I was filling in for Cantor Mizrahi. And that's what they do there. And so I like that one. So that's what I do. So I threw it in. Let's listen to one more version of Ein Kamocha, which is the beginning of the ceremony, the opening of the ark. And this, we're going to go back to Mordechai Hirschman, one of the Golden Age cantors. Let me tell you a little bit about him. One second. Now, Hirschman lived till 1940, so he lived through the Holocaust. The height of his career, he was the Chazan in Vilna, and during World War I, he was drafted into the Russian army. But it is said that his officer was so impressed by his tenor voice that we released him from duty so he could return to his community in Vilna. So he toured, and then in 1920 he emigrated to the United States, where he took a position as the chief chazan at Beth El Temple in Brooklyn, New York. So let's listen to Mordechai Hirschman's version of Ein Kamocha. You'll hear a great voice here. Very different than Sulzer. What a performance.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's his voice reminds me of my childhood. My father had a huge collection of cantorial music, and he would
nice.
play every weekend. He would be playing all his records, and those were the voices that I would hear. A nice memory.
It's a treasure. It's going out of fashion. But imagine, it's really like a concert, a performance. And these recordings are preserved. You can get these still, Bonnie, so they're online and very accessible. All right, so moving on. So there is the moment when the ark is opened and we make a ritual out of that. And then there are these mystical prayers before the open ark, which are various verses from our tradition. And what we like to highlight, because there's a great tune to it, is in the middle of this page, page 170. This statement, it's the words are in Aramaic, so you know that it's from a certain period, the same period as the Kaddish. This Ana Avda de Kudisha Brichu. I am the servant of the Holy One, de Kudusha, Brichu, blessed is God's name, who I revere, and whose precious Torah I revere in every time and place. And this is a Hasidic chant, kind of, that we like to present and to summarize what these verses are. Anna, 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 Avda de Kudesha Berichu, Anna, 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 Avda de Kudesha Berichu, Anna, 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 Avda de Kudesha Berichu, Anna, 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 Avda de Kudesha Berichu. There's even a third section. Anna, 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 Avda de Kudesha Berichu, Anna, 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 Avda de Kudesha Berichu, Anna, 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 Avda de Kudesha Berichu, Anna, 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 Avda de Kudesha Berichu. It's a very nice way to center yourself, get into the frame of studying the holiest part of our tradition, the Torah. Something came directly from God to Moses to us, and so musically, it's very inspiring. In a simple way, and the words are reverent. And then every Torah service, like our book, has this little arrow marked in red that tells you where you resume the chanting. And so be'anarachetz, be'anarachetz. Velishme Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Anna Emar Tushbechan, Be'anarachitz, Be'anarachitz, Velishme Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Anna Emar Tushbechan, Yeherava. Kodamach, Tiftach libi be'oraita, Vitashli mishalin libi, Veliba decholamach Yisrael, Litav l'chaim l'ishlam. Amen.
That's good.
May it be your will that you open my heart to your Torah. So at that point, we take the scroll out. The ritual continues. We hold the scroll up to the congregation, and Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And the congregation repeats that phrase, which is the central statement of Judaism. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one, followed by the statement, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Our God is one, Echad Eloheinu, great is God, holy is God's name. And then we have the third statement, join me in glorifying God. Let us together acclaim God's name. Gadlu l'Adonai iti, o niromim shemo yachdav. Then we have the opening hakafa, like a circuit or parade when we carry the Torah around. And my goodness, we haven't done this in 2 years because of spreading virus. So we do not march through the sanctuary as we did in days of old, but we will resume, God willing. We'll do it soon, and we show honor to the Torah by taking a holy object such as a siddur, or the more commonly the tzitzit, the fringe of the Torah, of the talit, and we touch the Torah, bring the talit, the tzitzit to our lips as it goes around. And maybe that's why they inserted this, so that we have something to do during the march. Lech Adonai hagedula hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'yahod ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha yamid naaseh lechol berosh. Another melody. Romimu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu Le'adom raglam kadoshu romimu, etc., etc. We got this nice melody to bring us through while Charles and the president are taking the mantle off and opening the Torah to read. And we have this ritual. Then we begin the reading of the Torah. As you can see, there's a special words that are recited as we call to the Torah for the first Aliyah. And in traditional congregations, the first Aliyah is reserved for a descendant of the Kohanim, of the priests from the temple, as opposed to a Levi or the more common. But that's not a custom we follow. So then you'll hear that these Baruch Shenatan Torah Li'amo Yisrael Biktu Shato, usually chanted, V'atem advekim b'Adonai Elohechem Chaim kolechem hayom. The last statement says, you who cling to Adonai, your God, have all been sustained to this day. And then this is something that is printed up on a big card in every synagogue as people who are given the honor of an aliyah. The aliyah is to make the blessing before each reading. Another detail about Torah reading is that the the portions, the parshot of the Torah are split up in of course, in order from the beginning, from creation till the death of Moses. And it is split up for each portion for each week. I think because you could say because it's a lot of reading. Modern congregations, including ours, have split the Torah reading up into triennial readings, meaning that 1/3 of each parsha is read each week, and it's done in order so that in the cycle of 3 years you will have read in the synagogue all of each week's parshas. So you read the first third of each of the whole year. The next year you read the middle third, and the next year you read the last third. And so it all adds up in the end. You could say that this is done so that you can more intensely study each parsha in smaller chunks, so you can get more deeply into it, which is a nicer way of saying, instead of it's too much, it's just too much reading. And you all know the brachot, you've all done the brachot, and here they are, where you say praise to Adonai, to all praises, to whom all praises. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. This is that melody that you know so well, that you teach, that you learn for a bar or bat mitzvah. This is an honor that is reserved only for adult Jews, meaning they're past bar or bat mitzvah. And so that's done for each aliyah. On Shabbat, a minimum of 7 plus maftir, so there are 8 aliyot read. Interesting that Shabbat, there are 8 aliyot. For festivals, there only are 5 aliyot, because Shabbat is actually considered more holy than the festivals. And during the week, when you're just reading for the next, you're studying for the next week, there only are 3 aliyot. So that's a very interesting and nice way of declaring what's more important. So Shabbat is so important. And of course, you probably know that there are these Misha Beirach pronounced, special individual prayers that are made. We consider the moment in the synagogue when the Torah is out, the Torah is open, it's the most holy moment. It's the moment when we believe that God has our full attention. And so this is the time when you slip in these extra prayers. In our synagogue, it's a nice custom. It's something that is favored in our synagogue, is to do a blessing, a Misha Beirach blessing, a prayer for healing. And so this is the one Misha Beirach that we highlight at Har Zion when we mention the names of those that we pray for return to health. In Hebrew, we say refuah shlema. And there's a special text that goes along with that. And so the Kaddish is done throughout the service. There are many different Kaddishim, and before a service and to end a service, you put in the Kaddish. As you know, the Kaddish is just a way to exalt God. And when we conclude the Torah reading, we insert a special Kaddish, a Chatzi Kaddish, just the half Kaddish, and it's done to indicate to the congregation that the Torah service, the Torah reading is concluded. However, there is one more Torah reading, which I tell my students, the young people, I say it's a victory lap. And so after the Chatzi Kaddish, there is the Maftir reading. The Maftir reading is the reading of the Torah that precedes the Haftorah. Haftorah is a selection of prophets. As you all know, you've done Haftorah. Well, no, you haven't. Some of you have. I know Bonnie did not long ago. But the Haftorah is not considered as holy as Torah. It comes from the prophets. And so the Haftorah has its own blessing, which changes the musical mode, and it goes into the Haftorah trope. By the way, yeah, and so then the Torah has its own trope. I think we'll skip that, the discussion about Torah trope. I guess I could show it to you. I have it ready. Is this it, I hope? No, that's not it. Torah trope. Forgive me, I have, what did I do with it? Put it on my desktop. I think if I don't find it in a second, we'll just skip that idea. Yeah, this is it. So let me share this with you because I think it's of interest. Here we go. So the Torah has its own cantillation. There are many different traditions. This is the one most common in an Ashkenazi synagogue. This was codified by Binder. And these are the names of the tropes. And each word of the Torah has one of these symbols on them. And they tell you not only how to sing the word, but they tell you where the pronunciation, where the accent of the word is. Mercha, tipcha, munach, etnachta. And on the left is the musical notation. Mercha, tipcha, munach, etnachta. And these are different variations of these tropes. You get to number 9 is kadma. It's like a comma over the word. Kadma, mapach, pashta, munach, katon, etc. Number 10, mapach, pashta, munach, katon, is one way to chant the Torah. Of course, it takes quite a lot of skill. You need Hebrew skill, you need musical skill, that is the tradition of reading the Torah. As we move on, let me put the Torah service back on the screen. And as I said, so following the reading of the Torah comes the Haftorah, because we don't want to forget our prophets either. These are important readings. They reflect. They're selected because the Haftorah has something to do with what is read in the Torah that day. Particularly if it's a holiday, Rosh Chodesh or so forth, there are special Haftorot that are selected. We're too far here. But as I said, the Torah, when the Torah is out, God has our attention, we believe. And we can put in our special prayers, our special wishes, and that's when we have our prayer for our country, our prayer for Israel, prayer for peace. And I think we can spend some of our last minutes listening to a nice recording of this prayer for the state of Israel. Obviously, it's something modern. And I've done this melody before, but it's, wait a second, prayer for peace. Here it is. This is the, wait a minute, no. Give me a second. I'm a little finger trigger happy, and I'm jumping all over. Mishabera, Chatzi Kaddish, Haftorah, and then prayer for the congregation, prayer for the community, prayer for creation, prayer for our country, prayer for the state of Israel. This is a recording of the Avinu Shebashamayim, and this is the cantor from New York, Ozzy Schwartz, and two other New York cantors. This was recorded for a PBS special, the New York Cantors. And let's listen to a little bit of Avinu Shebashamayim. It's on your screen as well. Sounds a little bit like Exodus, doesn't it? Here we go. Avinu Shebashamayim, second line. Nice three-part harmony. Very beautiful. I don't think we have time to listen to the whole thing.
It is.
There are three sections that musically are different. This was written by Saul Zim, who is still a living cantor. I did hear him sing his own composition a few years ago, and boy, oh boy, he just belted it. It went out. And he went on. It went on for about 9 minutes, as does this version. But this is a very lovely version. I'd recommend, if you're interested, to find it online, of the PBS special, the New York Cantors. Very beautifully done. Let's close up. The Torah service is also the time that on Shabbat that the new month is announced, and there are many beautiful settings for that. Maybe you've been in synagogue when we announce the new month. It's done every the Shabbat before the month changes. The calendar is very important to our faith, and So we make a special blessing during the Shabbat before the new month, that we pray for a life that's peaceful, a life that is good, a life that is blessed. And I like this translation of Chaim Shel Parnasa. You may know that word better in the Yiddish pronunciation, Parnuse. And we pray for, they say here, proper sustenance. But when two Yiddish speakers are together, they say, Dios Parnuse, means that you're making a living. So this is where we announce the new month, followed by the beloved prayer Ashrei. As you well know, the thing that drives most of our students crazy, because they have to learn Ashrei. It's pretty difficult. The Hebrew is not easy, but you'll notice about Ashrei is that it's a psalm of praise. It's Tehillah David of David, and you'll notice that it's alphabetical. Of course, we have the introductory Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, and then you have Aromimcha, Aleph, Bechol Yom, Bet, Gadol Adonai, Gimel, Dor, Ledor, generation after generation, Daled. So if you didn't notice, Ashrei is praising God from A to Z.
I probably didn't either.
And
Didn't
Tehillah,
notice that.
you never noticed that? Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, it's praising God A to Z. So you came to the right place.
Thank you.
So let's return the Torah. The Torah is wrapped with dignity. We treat this object with special dignity. We march around. We lift it, and again we march around to another psalm, Mizmor LeDavid. Avu l'Adonai b'nedim, Avu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Avu l'Adonai kavod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai b'yadrat kodesh. And that's one melody. That's probably the most popular melody, which probably goes back to Sulzer. And we carry the Torah around. We bring it back to the ark, where we say, whenever the ark was set down, Moses would say, Uvenuchu yomar, Shuva Adonai. And we pick up the singing with, of course, this famous Ki lekachtov natati lachem, going to Eitz Chaim Hi. That's the name that the publishers of our Chumash have chosen. Eitz Chaim Hi. It is a tree of life. L'machazikim ba, for those who grasp it. And in modern days, we take the melody that is very similar to the Hatikva, connecting us to Israel. Eitz Chaim Hi, L'machazikim ba, V'tomechea meushar. Why is that a little bit poignant? To do the melody of Hatikva? Because we've returned to Israel. So metaphorically, we're returning our Torah to the ark. Cute. And then Hashivenu, turn us towards you. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Kadesh, Kadesh Yameinu, Kadesh Yameinu, Kekedem. The days of old, which hopefully we'll return to, that were pre-pandemic, Kadesh Yameinu. So let's hope, and it's just like returning, we return the scroll to the ark. Let's let's finish our session today with a modern take on Eitz Chaim Hi. It's a Hasidic melody, but it's interpreted by Noah Aronson, who is, by the looks of him, he can't be more than 35 years old. I've met him at cantorial meetings and conventions. He plays guitar, but let's listen to his Eitz Chaim. And let me see. Tell me if you don't hear the music, but I think that you'll be able to. So I'll start this. Hear it?
Yes.
Okay. This is Noah Aronson singing the Eitz Chaim.
Eitz Chaim Hi
Hasidic.
Lama Chazikim Ba V'samcheha Meyushar Eitz Chaim Hi Lama Chazikim Ba V'samcheha Meyushar Deracheha Darchei Noam V'chal Nesivoseha Shalom
So he put this on an album, so it's for your listening pleasure, but it's pretty cool. Well, maybe we'll try it sometime at Har Zion.
I think it's
Let's
pretty.
see.
Oh,
It's
it's lovely.
mine. Very nice. So, Morris, what'd you think of that tune? I didn't know you were with us.
You're mute, Morris.
I didn't hear you. I think you were muted.
You're mute.
Said I apologize for being late, but I thought it was at 4:30.
Oh,
So
Was?
that
What'd you
was
say?
last week,
I
Morris.
said I thought the class was at 4:30, not 3:30.
Oh,
So
we fell back to 3:30.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. I had my volume off.
okay. No, I thought the class started at 4:30.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but it's okay.
Well, maybe
I
it's
got the last
The
song.
last nice one.
Okay. Oh, well. Oh, well, better luck next time.
Yeah.
Well, nice to see everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Stewart.
you very much.
Thank
Cantor.
you.
Very,
Thank
very
Very
good.
welcome. Have a
Lovely.
wonderful Thanksgiving.
And the same to you.
And sei gesund. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Have a nice
Morris, what can I
Thanksgiving.
tell you?
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.